What if the real secret behind country music's golden age wasn't the steel guitars or rhinestone suits, but the stubborn streak of kindness that kept tired tour buses rolling and put food on strangers' tables? Tonight we push past the mythology of whiskey-soaked heartbreak to uncover 21 legends whose greatest hit might have been simple human decency. You know their voices: the angelic trill that floats over Appalachia, the baritone that rattles prison gates, the high lonesome cry that makes bluegrass blossom. But behind the spotlights, these artists quietly mailed books to toddlers, paid for tombstones, knelt beside hospital beds, and cracked jokes until dawn so a nervous newcomer could breathe. Each story you're about to hear is a fresh verse in an unseen ballad, and every verse swaggers in with one promise: generosity is as country as sweet tea. Stay tuned, because before the final chord fades, you'll learn about Dolly Parton's secret vaccine fund, George Jones's hidden cemetery, and a brand new Randy Travis song synthesized from artificial intelligence. By the end, you may find yourself humming a different tune, and just maybe, planning the next good deed you can slip quietly into the world. Kindness never needed an encore. Ever. Dolly Parton is so famous for sparkle that it's easy to miss the hard work glittering underneath. In 1995, she launched the Imagination Library, mailing a book every month to any preschool child whose parents signed up. What began as a hometown experiment mushroomed until, in 2023, the program celebrated its 200 millionth book, meaning that 1 out of 7 American toddlers now receives mail from Dolly. Parents tell stories of little hands gripping the mailbox lid on delivery day as though a rainbow might burst out. Yet paper and ink were only the start. In the dark spring of 2020, Parton quietly wired $1 million to Vanderbilt University Medical Center after hearing a surgeon friend describe a risky new approach to fighting the novel coronavirus. The grant accelerated the research that became the Moderna vaccine, an achievement formally acknowledged in the New England Journal of Medicine footnotes. When reporters pressed her, Dolly laughed and said she hoped her gift would do a little good. She insisted on getting the shot on camera, only so viewers could watch an old songbird roll up her sleeve like everyone else. Session players recall that she tips engineers the same way most people tip waiters, and studio runners swear she remembers their kids' names months later. Once, during a blizzard in Pigeon Forge, her bus stopped so she could hand-carry blankets to stranded motorists before the towing crews arrived. The common thread is a refusal to let resources sit idle when they could be working miracles. As she often quips, you can't outgive God, but you can sure keep him busy counting. Parton's example reframes wealth as velocity. Money becomes music only after it moves through someone else's life, echoing farther than any gold record. George Jones's voice could slide from velvet to gravel in a single syllable, but the man behind it was softer than either texture suggests. After years of playing funeral benefits for forgotten sidemen, Jones decided the ultimate tribute was peace in perpetuity. He quietly bought 60 cemetery plots at Woodlawn Memorial Park, reserving half for family and the rest for impoverished musicians who might otherwise lie in unmarked ground. A funeral home employee finally leaked the story, stunned that a superstar had paid in cash, signed no publicity photos, and driven away. Kindness welded to personal demons often defines country legends, and Johnny Cash offers the starkest example. His prison concerts, Folsom in 1968, San Quentin in 1969, were not publicity stunts. They were research trips. In July 1972, Cash carried 2 formerly incarcerated friends into a U.S. Senate subcommittee hearing, urging lawmakers to separate teenagers from hardened offenders and to replace vengeance with rehabilitation. The man in black, wearing a white shirt, told the senators that every one of us is better than the worst thing we ever did. Those hearings helped lay groundwork for inmate education programs and drew national eyes to scandalous conditions behind bars. Onstage, kindness continued. When Glen Shirley, an inmate whose song Cash had recorded, won parole, Cash took him on tour and paid his salary until Shirley found his footing. Industry insiders remember Cash's Nashville farmstead, where hitchhikers and down-on-their-luck pickers could count on a hot meal, a dry bunk, and a sermon about staying sober, delivered by a man who was still wrestling amphetamines. Compassion, he insisted, was the only cure for hypocrisy. The link between Jones and Cash is generosity that sees dignity where society sees damage. Each proved that a broken heart can still write checks large enough to change other people's destinies. Patsy Cline strode through Nashville's halls with the swagger of a headliner and the wallet of a patron. When a new female singer showed up trembling with an overdue electric bill, Patsy peeled 320s from her purse and said, "Pay it forward, hoss." She scheduled phone calls with protégés and critiqued their demo tapes. Her mentoring style blended blunt criticism with maternal insistence on self-respect. Anytime a male producer addressed a girl in the control room, Patsy corrected him with, "That's a woman, Mr. Bradley." After her tragic 1963 plane crash, friends found IOUs from musicians she had secretly floated. Her estate forgave every debt. Loretta Lynn inherited that sisterly torch and carried it for 6 decades. Loretta loved stopping at roadside flea markets to buy fans baby blankets and minor lunch pails she signed. At 90, she still joked with tourists on her porch, signing hats while producers shushed them. The coal miner's daughter never forgot the price of groceries, and she spent royalty checks covering medical bills for neighbors in rural Kentucky. Tammy Wynette, portrayed as the damsel in Stand By Your Man, was in reality a caretaker. Between shows, she kept a list of performers' birthdays so she could call each one at soundcheck. Wynette's dressing room resembled a mobile pharmacy stocked with inhalers, headache remedies, and sewing kits she loaned. She once postponed an encore to hold a sobbing backup singer, whispering lyrics until the woman could walk back on stage. Together, these queens rewrote the genre's rules, bold on wax, nurturing in person. Their kindness was no side act. It was the headline they hoped would outlive every hit single. Her hospitality never took a night off. Don Williams earned the nickname the Gentle Giant, not because he avoided conflict, but because he met it with a grin that melted tempers. After every show, he sat on an equipment case by the stage door and shook every hand until the parking lot emptied, signing ticket stubs until sunrise. One fan recalled Williams handing him the cap from his head and saying, "It's sweated on, so you know it's authentic." His baritone turned arenas into living rooms, proving that serenity can thunder louder than amplifiers. Glen Campbell, by contrast, burned bright and fast, yet his generosity glowed even as his memory dimmed. When doctors diagnosed Alzheimer's in 2011, Campbell refused to slip quietly into private care. Instead, he launched a farewell tour documented in the film I'll Be Me, allowing fans to witness forgotten lyrics, jokes, and bravery. The proceeds funded dementia research, and Campbell's willingness to be vulnerable transformed a tragedy into communal courage. Crew members remember that he kept candy in his guitar case for venue janitors who cleaned after midnight. Randy Travis rounds out the trio with a story of resurrection. A stroke in 2013 stole his speech and nearly silenced his art. Yet Travis spent a decade relearning syllables, and in 2024 technology returned the favor. Engineers trained an AI model on hundreds of recordings, enabling him to release Where That Came From, his first new vocal in years. The single debuted on his 65th birthday, and Travis smiled through tears as fans sang along. Far from controversy, country circles framed the song as proof that community and code can cooperate to resurrect a storyteller. As Williams once said, "A good song never gives up. It just waits for the singer to catch up." Chet Atkins rarely raised his voice above coffee shop volume, yet his influence filled every studio on Music Row. Guitarists chasing a break discovered that if they recorded a demo in Atkins's basement, he would circulate the tape upstairs at RCA until somebody offered them union scale. Many never learned who paid the rental fee for those sessions. They just noticed the invoice stamped settled. Bassist Norbert Putnam later revealed that producers watched promising pickers by tracking those gratis demos. Atkins called it planting seeds and trusting the rain. The maestro also pressed a $20 bill into the hand of any busker whose tune made him pause on the sidewalk, famously telling one fiddler, "Don't spend it on strings, spend it on supper." Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, matched Atkins's discretion with fierce guidance. During festival jam circles, he would lift his mandolin, nod at a shy teenager, and bark, "Take it," a command equal parts invitation and challenge. Alumni remember that Monroe later mailed them critique sheets, each suggestion ending with, "Keep picking, Bill." His legacy today includes the non-profit Monroe Mandolin Camp, which awards scholarships to students who submit a video playing one of his tunes. The curriculum combines technique workshops with storytelling nights where veterans recount Monroe sneaking sandwiches to break pickers backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. Together, Atkins and Monroe demonstrate two sides of guidance, one stealthy and one stern, both fueled by respect for craft over ego. Their protégés describe the same realization. Great music is a community service, and mentoring is another instrument. That orchard still blossoms at every open mic night between Anchorage and Austin. Country radio once told Charlie Pride that audiences would never accept a black man singing about front porch love and Saturday sins. Pride answered not with protests, but with poise. When a promoter in the late 1960s warned him to avoid the crowd after a show in Jackson, Mississippi, Pride walked straight to the merchandise table and shook every hand in line. His philosophy was simple: expose people to dignity long enough and fear starves to death. The 2019 PBS documentary, I'm Just Me, captures that grace, showing Pride inviting critics backstage for coffee rather than condemnation. He later endowed a scholarship fund for music students at his high school alma mater, reminding graduates that success tastes sweeter when you share dessert. Kitty Wells had already blazed the trail Pride was walking. Her 1952 hit, It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels, shattered the myth that women's voices couldn't top the charts. Wells handled the attention with unflappable modesty, often driving herself to shows to save promoter costs and insisting on the same cafeteria lunch as the stagehands. Journalists described her as the Queen of Country, but she brushed off the crown, saying, "Queens invite folks in, they don't sit on thrones." Despite 40-plus top 10 hits, Wells spent afternoons visiting nursing homes between matinee and evening sets, serenading residents who thought star power had passed them by. Although Pride and Wells came from different worlds, their kindness sprang from the same conviction. Country music belongs to everyone willing to listen. By leaning toward people who expected rejection, they transformed stages into civic spaces. Their legacies echo today whenever a festival features inclusive lineups or a singer cites Wells as proof that humble roots can still yield royalty. Fans feel that invitation every time Pride's vinyl crackles or Wells's yodel blooms. Long before Hollywood discovered superheroes, Gene Autry roamed the silver screen as the singing cowboy, but his greatest epic took place in hospital corridors. Autry's estate funded the orthopedic center that now bears his and his wife Jackie's names at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, where rodeo murals line the walls to calm nervous patients. Parents still whisper, "That's where the cowboy paid for the cast on your leg," and children smile because generosity needs no lariat. Roy Acuff, king of country music, wore his royalty like denim. At the Grand Ole Opry, he kept spare fiddles in his dressing room so first-time performers could borrow one when nerves snapped strings. When soldiers gifted Acuff a German violin after World War II, he donated the instrument to the Country Music Hall of Fame so visitors could hear its story. Acuff believed prestige should circulate, not congeal. Ernest Tubb embraced the same ethic after midnight. His radio show, The Midnight Jamboree, launched in 1947 and still broadcasts from Nashville's Music Valley Drive. Tubb refused to leave the record shop until every fan secured an autograph, and he used the microphone to introduce greenhorn acts to an audience, handing over his own guitar mid-song. Hank Lachlan, remembered for the classic "Please Help Me, I'm Falling," gained another reputation backstage: nicest man on the circuit. Obituaries in 2009 quoted colleagues calling him an ambassador of Bruton because he greeted everyone with the same handshake whether they ran a label or a lunch cart. Lachlan's final performance was a charity concert for a storm-damaged church, sung from a stool despite sore knees. But he refused to shorten the set list. Together, these four prove that country kindness can gallop, glide, broadcast, and linger like a sweet high tenor long after the power amps cool. Tom T. Hall called himself the storyteller, yet his most radical tale was silent charity. When a tornado leveled a mobile home park near his Franklin farm in the 1990s, Hall arrived with a pickup loaded with supplies, then left before cameras arrived. NPR's 2021 Remembrance praised him as a trustworthy observer, a writer who saw every person as the hero of a 3-minute novel. Hank Williams lived faster, died younger, but squeezed tenderness into the narrowest spaces. Stagehands recalled Hank slipping $50 bills to bandmates whose cars broke down between honky-tonks. In Montgomery, Alabama, he once overheard a busker butcher lovesick blues, laughed, tuned the man's guitar, and filled the hat with his own per diem. Hank's flaws were legendary. His impulse to help was equally. Marty Robbins added stamina to that generosity. At the Grand Ole Opry, he routinely played an hour past closing, then stood by the stage door until every autograph seeker held a signed program. Photographs show him grinning under fluorescent hallway lights, pen uncapped while janitors worked. One night he chartered a Greyhound for stranded fans whose car had failed after the matinee, paying the driver extra to detour through their hometowns. Ricky Skaggs bridges the vintage and the modern. Backstage videos from 2024 show him handing his mandolin to teenagers during impromptu jam sessions, urging them to take a solo while Kentucky Thunder claps the tempo. Many of those pickers have since landed record deals, crediting the boost to Skaggs' confidence. At bluegrass festivals, he prowls the campground after midnight, seeking campfires where novices fumble chords. He squats by the embers, demonstrates a lick, and moves on like a ghost of Bill Monroe. These four artists prove that storytelling isn't confined to lyrics. Actions annotate the melody long after the final chorus fades. Across 7 decades, these 21 voices proved that kindness is neither soft nor small. It bankrolls vaccines, lifts tombstones, mails picture books, sneaks sandwiches into guitar cases, and turns backstage hallways into classrooms. If country music is a conversation between strangers, generosity is the microphone that lets every accent be heard. The next time a steel lick makes your heart lurch, remember the unseen choruses of patients, prisoners, students, and exhausted drivers who felt that kindness firsthand. Legends fade, vinyl warps, but good deeds re-release themselves in new formats. Living covers you and I perform when we pay the tab for the car behind us, or listen a minute longer than our schedule allows. So keep the chorus moving. Pick a small, brave act and let it ring like an open chord into someone else's night. Before you click away, drop a name in the comments. An unsung side stage hero, the fiddle teacher in your town, the bar owner who loans guitars on slow Tuesdays. We'll gather those notes for a sequel episode because this melody wants more verses, and the next one could start with you now. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.